So hi everyone and welcome to our final session of the Get Travel Talking seminar this morning. So now we're going to talk about how to support staff and build resilience in your business. Of course, with budgets stretched and to breaking point and employees under immense strain at the moment, how can brands ensure that they have the right strategy in place to support their people? This session will examine different approaches from across the industry to help safeguard staff mental health and offer practical advice and to prepare for future challenges. I'm delighted to be joined by three experts today in this field to have a fantastic conversation. And first we have Laura Herbert, Global Head of People and Talent at Travel Counsellors. We have Danielle Grant, Head of HR EMEA for Royal Caribbean Group, and Rachel O'Reilly, Head of Communications at Kuoni. Thanks very much for joining me, everyone. I hope you're all well.
Oh, good.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Well, yeah, I just wanted to kind of start by getting your all kind of personal takes on it, really. I know the part of the pandemic's presented, hitherto unseen challenges and pressures on staff and businesses. Kind of how has it all been for you personally? And I imagine kind of a HR and kind of staff wellness and support roles that you all kind of undertake as well as part of your role has probably been more important than ever, really. Danielle, kind of how has it been for you at Royal? Obviously, cruise having the kind of the global shutdown operations so far, it must have been quite a strange kind of business to be in the last few months.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's been an interesting time for the company, and we've never had all of our fleet not operating, so that's something for us to adapt and work through. I think from the team side, the biggest journey we went on this year is when we went into lockdown, especially within our UK side. And we had to transition people to the home working, and we were met with quite a lot of anxiety and stress with that. Some people love it and some people don't, and we did it within a week, and we transitioned everyone into that home working environment. But with that took a lot of post-it planning to how do we support them then distantly, and engaging with our employee resource groups to help us who lead in certain areas, be it well-being, be it women's network group, and they all came together to help come up with really creative virtual solutions for us to engage with them and help them kind of get used to working from home. And even to the point with our leadership, we started doing these virtual town halls weekly, and they would each share stories of what they're doing, how they're keeping themselves motivated and engaged, and then it also actually helped us globally as a business, because then it meant that everyone was going through this across the world in all our offices, and our crew were all looking to be repatriated, which was a mammoth task that we went through as well. And with that, we just all came together virtually on finding ways. So actually it brought people we maybe didn't talk to all the time, be it in our Miami office, our Sydney office, all coming up with ideas of how we connect, how we support each other, that ended in 6 months later, people have really said, wow, I felt like I was supported, and I had people really connected with me when actually I was working from home and maybe didn't get to see people face to face.
That's great. And Laura, as well, obviously, as travel counsellors, you guys are specialists at working from home, so you probably were so more au fait with it than the rest of us. But how has it been from you guys as the team at head office, and kind of obviously with the immense stresses and strains that travel agents have been under, kind of what's that been like to support your TCs?
Yeah, yes, you said that, Tom. Obviously, we are a specialist home working network, so we were very much prepared for that. Obviously, we have our self-employed business owners, but also we have about 450 colleagues globally who are employed, so who are all accustomed to working from home as well. So the home working element was quite easy to transition. A lot of that though was around the Travel Counsellors as a 25-year-old successful business, having double-digit growth for at least the last 15 years, as we've all experienced this new for the first time. And I didn't want to use the word unprecedented, because how many times have we all heard that? But yeah, fundamentally it was all about making sure that people had the right communication, and we managed the transition really personal as well, to make sure that people had the right support in place. So we have a wealth of support available for our travel counsellors and our colleagues as well. So we have a personal counsellor that has been available for everybody. I think that's a really important service to provide, and it's something we've had for many years already, and it is a very, very popular service. We have a very considerable a colleague and also travel counsellor SharePoint website where all the relevant information is signposted. So we break that down into physical, financial and mental well-being, as well as it's all just not about mental well-being. It's a bit bigger than that. But fundamentally, it's about sharing communication, being there for each other, acting as a community, and the rallying of our support team with our TCs in supporting one another and our customers through this period has been amazing to see everyone pull together, and effectively the power of the travel industry. Everybody's so passionate about this, and we want to be able to make sure that we support each other through this as well. So we've had a host of the relevant support mechanisms in place for our people. I could reel some off shortly, but I think fundamentally it's very similar to what Danielle was saying, in responding very quickly to the immediacy of that crisis to make sure our customers were safe, our travel counsellors had the most relevant information, and we worked together as one team. And I think that team ethic has really shone through here at Travel Counsellors.
And Rachel, what about yourself with Crony? Because you had the stores, you had the operator side of things. There's just so much to handle and deal with. Kind of what's it been like from you guys as a business?
Yeah, I mean, a big change, and change is the big thing here, because the speed of change was just phenomenal. And I think that would have really impacted quite a lot of people. Unlike Travel Counsellors, Crony wasn't set up as a home working business. So, in a matter of days, we had to set up a virtual call centre, get people kitted out. But listen, we're 6 months down the line now, and, we're here, sort of talking about the whole topic of mental health. And I'm sure, I speak, on behalf of lots of people, which is, we've gone through lots of different emotions, and people will all handle this in different ways. Early on, I think we got that communications and keeping people connected was going to be important. Tools like Yammer, if anybody doesn't know Yammer, or things like Workplace, they're sort of internal social networks, but we set up a group on there about mental health. And, we kept people connected with, a TV channel or TV show that we do every week, just so that you could see the senior faces and familiar faces each week, with guests coming on, so people could see and hear from their colleagues. But everybody will handle this differently. And, it's just been a roller coaster of emotions, with no real sign of things slowing down. As we talk now about returning to the office, people coming back from furlough, that creates a whole other sort of raft of concerns and worries for people that we have to stay sensitive to. And, right now, a lot of us are sort of battling for business, and, we can't get away from the fact that, travel is in a really, really, really dire situation. And, as we sort of all fight for our businesses, I guess, we can't forget that our businesses are powered by real people with real emotions, with behind the scenes stuff going on. I don't know, their other half might have lost their job, been on furlough, they might have been homeschooling in the background, all sorts of different things, Tom, which we need to keep front of mind as we support our people.
Absolutely, yeah. That kind of brings us on to my next point here, in terms of what the mental health issues that you've all kind of seen. Mostly, I think Rachel touched on some there fantastically. I know, Danielle, you said it with the crew as well, and kind of a cruise line not sailing as well. Kind of what kind of things of mental health wise have you had to deal with, and what kind of the biggest issues that you see from kind of HR and sort of head office, and kind of the team in general, really?
Yeah, I'd say it's been really an interesting journey when we see kind of what's been coming through from our employees around a bit of stress and a lot around anxiety in the environment, being the constant change. And I think Rachel shared a good point around our return to office. We've been working on a plan. Our offices are open, but voluntary at the moment for our employees to come if they feel comfortable. And that's caused a huge level of stress and anxiety of the return. And 6 months of being in an environment that you get used to from a change, and then having to adapt back again, has then caused a whole different approach. We now need to think about how we're going to help them, how we're going to engage them, how they're going to feel about being in 1-2 days a week, and when they start thinking about coming to the office. But I think that the key thing that we really noticed was one around the anxiety and one around stress. And I think even though our ships haven't been sailing, our teams have been incredibly busy. There's been a lot going on through the cancellations and the refunds that have had to happen. The work that's gone behind the scenes on the crew repatriation was absolutely massive in trying to get all of our crew back. And there's been this workforce of teams all supporting, and then alongside that, people were slightly forgetting to take breaks because they were constantly on a WebEx environment or a Zoom environment, and they were going back to back. And that's when we started going into week 3, week 4, week 5, we started seeing that level of burnout, fatigue coming through from our teams. And that's when we had to kind of adjust and go, well, what can we do differently? Because we need to start now educating them on a home working world, because we were mainly office-based working environment, bar when you're on the ships. And so it was a journey we had to take people through, and all those things started then adding to stress from our employees. We had to re-educate them on, right, this is how you operate, this is what you need to do, you need to take care of yourself. Even when it came to holiday, I think it's been an interesting topic around people taking holidays and breaks, obviously not being able to go places, but there's still a need to have a day off and take that break for your own well-being.
Yeah, I think I've probably lost count of the amount of out of office replies that people say, I'm on holiday, not anywhere nice, but I'm taking a break from it all. Yeah. And Laura as well, I know that we said travel counsellors, you know, specialists when it comes to work from home, but do people perhaps kind of get more isolated when they're at home? Because obviously other companies are more used to an office environment, and that's a change for them, isn't it? Not having that kind of normal, you know, environment to come to. But yeah, for people who are working on their own during this time and not having that, how have you guys kind of dealt with that?
Yeah, really interesting question. And from a travel counsellor's perspective, we are stronger together, and we have a magnificent community of travel counsellors that, you know, support each other. And, you know, we similar to what Rachel was describing, we have platforms like Yammer. TCs have set their own Facebook groups from everything from, you know, something a bit more jovial and TC Rate My Plate, from, you know, sharing food pictures to you know, health and well-being and mindset and etc. So, you know, we have a very comprehensive community that supports each other in that, as well as us providing that signposting support and guidance. And similarly so to what Rachel was describing, we also have our in-house TV show. So we increased the frequency of that as well. So we usually have a Wednesday show, but it got to the point where it was daily. So we can support people, because effectively with travel counsellors, it's their businesses that we're, you know, obviously we're suffering from the crisis as well. So, you know, we were quick to respond to making sure that people had the right communications, and therefore increase the frequency of that as well. So from a TC perspective, I think, you know, we just developed what we've already been brilliant at doing over the years. Effectively, as Rachel said, though, you know, everyone suffers with different issues, and it's a very much a personal journey. Our travel counsellors, 2 of our values are care and human, and effectively, you know, we are very much a business that's powered by our people. And fundamentally, it's about that personalisation and understanding how the individual needs of that individual are, and how we respond and tailor our support to that effectively as well. And with our colleagues, again, it was, you know, such a radical change. And as Danielle mentioned, it was around that process of change management. And a lot of, you know, no one's ever been through this before. So, you know, obviously there's a big lesson for all of us to learn. But we, you know, again, communicated with our colleagues. You know, there's a lot of kinds of signposting and support in place. But we also made it a little bit, you know, tried to get the you know, the enjoyment out of working from home. You know, colleagues who are not on furlough and still working, you know, sent us photos of what their working from home, you know, stations look like. You know, the dog getting involved, the kids, their lunchtime breaks. We even created, you know, a travel memories series where people sent in their fondest travel memories, just to be able to make that connection even deeper. And I think latterly, it's just the return to the office. So again, it's voluntary for us, but we're looking to increase more people to come into the office and show how safe it is. And we've created a back to base plan, which has been a very comprehensive, detailed, and, you know, a consultative approach with our colleagues around how we can make the office a much more comfortable and safe environment for them during this transition. And it's been great to see people come back, and, you know, having the back to base approach has been really good for us, as we see more colleagues return to the office and who crave that normality as such. So yeah, lots of initiatives in place there, but again, it's just responding to that immediacy of change and being aware of where people are on that journey. I think that's really important, because there's no one blanket approach to this at all.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was just kind of an open question, perhaps Rachel, if you'd like to take it. Who kind of do you think that brands and companies have changed their priorities during these months, because like you said, these businesses are built on people, aren't they? And it's people power and people's love for their brands and their companies. Do you think, Rachel, kind of things that Kuoni have done? I know that with redundancies and restructuring has been a huge part for the industry, and it's affected every company, really, hasn't it? I know Kuoni recently launched a scheme to help colleagues who won't be staying. Can you kind of talk us through that? Because that was quite a nice, interesting way to kind of give them a boost and a bit of a support to come through a really difficult time, and to kind of help them as part of the the Kuoni family that you've got there.
I mean, you say the Kuoni family, and I'm sure the others on the call today would think of their own businesses in the same way. We're a tight-knit bunch in travel, aren't we? And I think that's often how we see our colleagues, as as our other family. I think one important point to make is that a lot of people throughout this crisis will be experiencing mental health problems for the first time. There'll be others out there that perhaps know they have a tendency to, or they suffered from anxiety, or sleep problems, or have a history of depression. They knew that before we went into that. They perhaps were dealing with it in a way that was right for them. But alongside that, it's thrown up a huge problem, which is people that have never had anxiety before. They've never suffered from depression before. For example, just to highlight a few mental health challenges, and they will be at sea with this. Where do I go? Who do I turn to? And equally, alongside that, we all have a responsibility as friends and colleagues to spot the signs. If people are perhaps more withdrawn, or they don't seem themselves, or if we're aware that somebody may not have spoken to anybody for a while because they're living on their own. These are sort of things that we all have a part to play in supporting each other. And you're absolutely right. In the restructure we recently announced, it was, we were losing stuff, not by choice, but the fact that a pandemic has forced a situation on us. We are having to make changes to our business, which are really, really heartbreaking and hard, because we believe that everybody in our business is brilliant. They're our friends as well as our colleagues, and losing them feels really emotional and tough. So yes, we did, for those departing staff, put a package of support sort of tools in place. Our employee assistance program, for example, which is a phone line you can call with any sort of issues. It's all anonymous. We've extended that for anybody departing us, so for 3 months they still have access to it, plus outplacement support their CV, confidence building, because let's face it, if you're faced with redundancy, your confidence can be absolutely shattered. So things like that, working on confidence. And also, you're right, the Talent Finder was an initiative which was about showcasing our people and just saying to them, look, we're here for you. Anybody that we hear of that might be looking for staff, we want to connect you with potential employers. So really, I suppose, just keeping front of mind the emotions that people are going through, the challenges. I mean, the worry of being out of work for people is huge, with families or not with families, whatever. It is a very big worry. Very real problems will result from this. And as I said, many people facing these challenges for the first time.
And Laura as well, I know obviously last week travel councils announced their own restructure as well. I know it must be an incredibly awful time to go through. And kind of what's that kind of like from your perspective within the business when something like that's announced? It's something that probably no one ever wants to have to go through, is it? Kind of what's it like for you personally? Almost, it must take a real toll to kind of be perhaps maybe overseeing that, or being a big part of it and having to kind of tell people in that way.
Yeah, and Rachel hit the nail on the head there. As an industry, we are all in this together, and unfortunately we find every single travel business finds themselves in this position, unfortunately. So it's important we stick together as a community at this point. And I appreciate it's a very challenging time for our people at the moment, but I think what is really important, as you alluded to in your initial question, was around how brands and businesses respond to this. It's an important demonstration of our value proposition and who we are as an organization, and how businesses respond to this will tell what type of organization they are deep down. And you know, I think, you know, adding to what Rachel has at their business, yeah, we've got like employee assistance program as well. We have a welfare fund that's available for colleagues, you know, post 6 months of employment, after employment with us as well. We have, you know, access to learning platforms to help them with their skill set development. You know, we do career planning sessions one-to-one with them to support people in the industry who might need to pivot, identify other opportunities and have never worked anywhere else. So I think that personalization and that approach is really important. But yeah, for me and the team, you know, we were looking at, you know, continue our success as an organization, and unfortunately, you know, the crisis has put paid to that for now, but we will come back bigger, better, stronger. But unfortunately, we need to ensure that we support our people through this massive transformation at the moment with the relevant support package that, you know, that allows them to have the best possible chance.
Yeah, I think you're right. It says a lot, doesn't it, about a company and a brand, about how they treat their people, and all three of you. It's great to have all three of you on here, because, you know, you, as companies, you really do kind of, you know, put your money where your mouth is there. Do you kind of walk the walk in that sense? And Danielle as well, given, you know, Cruise's kind of situation it's in now in terms of restarts and kind of those restarts getting pushed back, and kind of hopefully it'll happen soon. But kind of how do you think that your kind of role will change and the kind of the situation will develop kind of the further this crisis unfolds? Do you think that you'll see different issues that people will be going under, or it'll just be kind of similar stresses and strains, but they'll kind of get even worse, or they'll get kind of more difficult to deal with as things kind of continue in this kind of limbo almost that we're in right now?
Yeah, I think we've found the key thing for us is just at Royal Caribbean Group is really just making sure we're preparing our teams for resilience and change, and that's kind of been the motto of the past few months, is what can we do to aid them on every communication, every channels, because we are going into, even in the future, a time of change as an organisation. And how you know, we plan, and the plan for our return to healthy sailing will equally come with a new dynamic that we've never experienced before. And we're trying to flip the discussion less on the unknown and more on the excitement of what that can bring and the change that you can develop as an individual with that. And then working alongside it, building in platforms for our teams that help them with that resilience and that change process. So similar to Rachel and Laura in terms of the organisation, we have an abundance of support mechanisms from a HR side that we very much partner with our employee resource groups to leverage. We keep it very much a peer set level and then a leadership ally towards it, so that people can feel engaged, be it using online tools, development tools, be it using our wellness platforms, be it just doing opportunities for people to talk about change and adapt to it. And that's what we've found proven to be quite successful. And we went on a journey on building awareness and support to our teams when we launched our employee resource groups about 4 years ago. And then with COVID, it's just really heightened and helped us for what the future is going to look like, and make a really robust plan that will support them and engage, talking with each other on a peer level and with our leadership on what can we do differently, how can I adapt, how can I find a way to support each other. And I think it also goes back to a sentiment of Mental Health Awareness Week earlier this year. It was all around kindness, and we've equally added that into our plans on how can you do things that we all know we need to achieve a lot, and we've got a lot coming, but how can you make each day different for someone in a kind act that you follow. And that equally has helped people be a bit more calmer in an approach of change, because change is never easy and we can't ignore that. So what can you do to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. And goodness me, we've had our fair share of change, haven't we, in the last few months. I'm just looking at the time. We haven't got a huge amount of time left, but perhaps just if everyone perhaps answer quickly. I was just wondering, because you're all such huge, you know, big established brands, and I was just wondering from perhaps if you'd give any advice to kind of smaller companies, perhaps who perhaps maybe don't have the resources of a Royal or a Crony or a Travel Counsellors. Rachel, perhaps what would you say? What advice would you give to someone, or you know, a person watching this who have a small independent business, kind of are those first steps to get that right kind of support strategy in place? What would you say to them advice wise?
Listen, your session is Get Travel Talking. I mean, talking is really, really important, and encouraging an open environment where you know, people feel able to ask colleagues for support is really important. You know, that does not need an expensive infrastructure or support, you know, platforms in place. You know, it's absolutely free, you know, no matter what size of organisation you are. I think to encourage a culture where people feel able to talk. Listen, a lot of people do not feel able to share their challenges in this area. Let's face it, despite all of the good stuff being done, mental health first aiders, employee assistance programs, etc., etc., a lot of people feel deeply uncomfortable sharing things like this, and I think that's why I think sessions like today, Tom, are really important. You know, it doesn't matter, it's not a male or a female thing, you know, this is for everybody, whatever age you are or family circumstances. So I would say for a smaller business, you know, encourage you know, a culture of communication and sharing, just asking somebody if they're okay. I do also think it's worth sharing that a lot of the time, the last people to know that they're unwell are the person themselves. You know, they may not have a clue what's happening to them. It's up to other people, their friends, their family, their colleagues, to spot the signs. And I think anybody watching this, you know, just gen up on what the signs are. Perhaps people becoming more withdrawn, or you know, behaviour that just seems out of character. You know, those are the sort of things that we need to look out for, and just find ways to approach kindly. I think that's a great word to use in this session, to kindly encourage a conversation. So I suppose my advice there is quite simple, really, which is, you know, keep talking.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. That was so well kind of summed up. And I suppose Danielle, Laura, now just to kind of give your final thoughts. Laura, perhaps kind of what's your main kind of you know, drive and goal now kind of going forward? You know, COVID's not going around anytime soon, as it's not leaving us. Kind of,
yeah.
what can you do to kind of prepare your travel counsellors kind of to go through this new normal and into the winter, which will be very difficult for people, won't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, I go back again to that, you know, personal approach that we have here, and making sure that as HR and leadership professionals, we've got a responsibility to do things right, and to make sure that we keep open dialogue and communications really open, transparent, and personal as well. So fundamentally, we've got a responsibility to all our people to make sure that we rebuild our business better, stronger, and, you know, give our travel counsellors the best possible platform to be successful. So, you know, we'll put a lot of you know, initiatives in place to help them, but fundamentally, as you know, one of our key messages around our transformation is around how we look to move forwards. We are excited about the future. Obviously it comes with the difficulties at the moment, but fundamentally I think you know, 2021 looks like going to be a brilliant year for TC, and hopefully our fellow travel colleagues as well.
Fantastic. And Danielle, is it in a situation, I loved what you said about kind of less of the unknown and more about the excitement. I think that's a fantastic way of kind of spinning it around, isn't it? Is that the same for you, kind of making sure that you keep people's kind of mental health in mind as you go through that kind of that exciting journey of unknown? Because cruise has kind of been in a way, it's kind of been quite similar for many years, hasn't it? And now there's some big upheavals. So kind of how are you going to go about that going forward?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's that changing into a different process of what can we provide and how we can change the mindset. And then I think we kind of did a target a few years ago, we've done it year on year, around breaking barriers around mental health, and that's really become a forefront, and it's about that communication but making an environment where people feel that it's a safe and open environment where you can share. And we started with our leadership sharing quite open stories around mental health, and then we cascaded that with our employees sharing as well, and that's kind of really highlighted this year with people then starting to feel more comfortable. But it's about, for me, creating opportunities for people to find an environment where they feel they can share, and it doesn't always need to be in a session or in a training session or in a one-to-one. There's many opportunities, and equally we are you know, a massive global business, and it's about also everyone supporting each other. And I think what Rachel shared around noticing the signs, supporting each other, and that kindness becomes incredibly powerful, because if everyone every day came to work with that mindset, and everyone came in about how they're interacting with their employees, and noticing where they maybe need support, even noticing whether you need to say, why don't we quickly have a virtual coffee and a catch up and see how you are, and taking that time can make a fundamental difference for that individual. And that for me is where we'll really be focusing over the future, and building on what we've already done.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for your fantastic advice. During the session, really enjoyed it, and hope that people have found it useful. We are now going to move to the live Q&A. So just on the left-hand side of your screen, if you see that the Q&A button, if you click on that, we'll all kind of reconvene to join you shortly. But that sounds great. So thanks very much, everyone. Really do appreciate it. All the best to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
A question from Megan. I can just sort of ask it generally if anyone wants to jump in on it. How can companies ensure that furloughed staff are being looked after and supported with their mental health during this time? Obviously, they might feel incredibly isolated at the moment. The furlough scheme's coming to an end, unfortunately. Perhaps, Laura, you're sort of at the top of my screen at the moment. How are travel counsellors kind of looking after? How many furloughed staff have you got, and what's the situation with them?
Yeah, so we've got quite a considerable number of colleagues on furlough, and we've included them in obviously all of our communications throughout the entire previous 6 months. What we've tried to enhance is we're one community, and not have communications that are direct to either furlough or non-furloughed staff. So we're all in this together, and effectively, we want to make sure that our colleagues who are furloughed, who unfortunately may leave our business at the end of the consultation that we're in at the moment, are accessing the support for their mental, physical, financial well-being as well. So we have a plethora of support available. We have our own counsellor that we have available free for access for anybody in the business, and which we've extended as well for those who leave us for the next 6 months. And we have a welfare fund as well as available for people. And we do have a host of content on wellbeing in the workplace, but also for those at home as well. So we have directed our communications and engagements to both parties, and just making sure that people know that we are there for them in their time of needs as well.
Yeah, it's keeping that togetherness, isn't it? Which sounds really nice. And Danielle, is it the same with you at Royal?
Yeah, very similar. So we have a counsellor that everyone can access, furlough or non-furloughed staff. We've what we've done in very similar is all our communication goes to all, and we've not kind of separated that out. And then we've done a lot of activation with management as well, and saying how are they engaging with their furlough staff and their non-furloughed, and making sure that they're keeping those regular touch points in. And one thing we've done with our employee resource groups as well, around adding in training and workshops around mental health, and that's been really pushed out to all employees, but we're really encouraging our furlough employees as well to join, to help them keep engaged and give them tools as well whilst in that environment. And what we found also quite useful is, as the months have gone on with furlough, we have seen some people return from furlough earlier than others, and we've utilised them to help say, how was that journey? What can we share with our other furlough employees to help them for when they come back? Because there is, everyone goes through a very different journey on their return from furlough, and we thought, who best to help than others who've gone through that, and then we can utilise that and build support mechanisms around.
Yeah, that's really nice to kind of use those experiences of people who've been in the same shoes, right? And Rachel, in the case with Kuoni as well, how have you guys been kind of connecting the furloughed staff with people who've been working?
Great questions. And I come at this in a slightly different way to Danielle and Laura, because I head up the communications at Kuoni, which has been referenced obviously as absolutely key. If anybody saw the previous session, we were talking about having, with Kuoni, started a Kuoni TV, like a TV program. I know that Danielle and Laura also referenced that as well, but we actually recorded it. It's gone out this morning, and we actually had one of our returning staff on the show this morning. So back from furlough, one of our team was explaining some of the emotions that she went through whilst she was off, because that's really important that everybody knows the challenges that the furlough team went through through as well. That particular member of staff had also just gone through our mental health first aid training along with another colleague. So we've actually bolstered our mental health first aid team for this period. And in terms of going forward, we want to make more in terms of the support, how people access the first aiders, what they're there to support with, how they as a group also connect and support each other. So yeah, I think that I also had a coffee this morning, had a virtual coffee with another member of our team who was back from furlough. It was not a work call, it was literally a scheduled Zoom. We got a drink in front of us, not an alcoholic one sadly, but we had a coffee. And
it is Friday, isn't it?
It's Friday, but we had a good old chat for half an hour, and it was very therapeutic. So I would encourage anybody to do that. Anybody that you know is coming back from furlough, just drop them a note and say, hey, come on, great to have you back. Welcome with open arms. They're feeling nervous, a lot of nervousness for sure. So let's make them feel welcome. I think the other two have explained very clearly some great ideas to welcome people back as well.
That's lovely stuff. I think we had a comment from April who asked about kind of investment in mental health first aiders, but I think Rachel's kind of summarised that really, really well. So that's great stuff. That was a great question, Megan. And we've got another question from Rachel, actually. It says, and I think, Rachel, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, actually. It says, for HR staff that are not trained in as mental health professionals, but may be used as a source of support, how can HR team members adapt to this while also looking after their own mental health? Because it can perhaps get quite overwhelming where someone's, especially if you're not necessarily trained with those skills to kind of deal with that kind of thing. Danielle, perhaps kind of how have you kind of find it for yourself? Kind of has it been learning a new skill set in some ways?
Yeah, I think within HR, you go through a journey where you're supporting employees for very different aspects in their life, in their work life and personal life that comes through. So I think definitely with COVID and that is heightened, and we've had to adapt and make sure that we're taking care of each other, and that's the principle I use with my team, and that runs all the way up to our senior HR execs in our US teams as well. Every calls we have is how are you supporting each other, and equally identifying where you stop the conversation and where you aid people with the tools that we have. And all my team, we're very good at knowing at that point that we have that conversation, we support our employees to a point that we can and have those but then we equally have an array of great external support with qualified counsellors that are there to help, and that's the piece that it's always about redirecting them to the right key support mechanisms. And then after that, it's then on that peer level and team level with each other on making sure that we're taking care of each other, and that kind of is our guiding principle. Be there to support, be there to guide, but then equally know when is the right time to give them the external support that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that balance, isn't it? And Rachel, you're kind of on this panel as kind of like a wellness lead. I know you've done so much within Kuoni to kind of imbue that culture. And yeah, because, what's it like when you don't necessarily have those skills? But you said, you have got professionals in place and you've made so much investment in mental health, resources available. Was that essential when you knew that a crisis like this was going to be around for some time and that you thought we need to have the right, skill set and people in place to help?
We'd already trained a group of mental health first aiders, which we did a couple of years ago. So we were kind of, and people might have noticed that we've also got a partnership with Mind, which we launched about a year ago. That is a fundraising partnership, but there's another element to it as well, which we use the advice that Mind give employers, and there absolutely loads of resources available for free to everybody on the Mind website. You don't have to have any sort of corporate partnership with them to access that. So anybody watching this, I would encourage them to go onto the Mind website, because there's a whole host of tools on there which we do share with our team. You've got to keep doing this though, because you've got to keep it sort of center stage and front of mind, because I think in many ways, if I'm being really honest, a lot of us really in business are scratching the surface with this. I think there's an awful lot of misunderstanding about mental health. There is a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of unwillingness, I think, from people to open up about it for fear of stigma. So I think there's a lot of work to do, but I do think the mental health first aiders and communicating what they're there to do is an important investment. But any company watching this that doesn't feel that they're able to sort of invest that money, then use what's free and available, and encourage the Mind website.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something is so much better than nothing, isn't it? And kind of like really going at it in the right way. I want a question for Laura, actually. I know that it's been in the news so much over the last few weeks in terms of local and regionalised lockdowns and things are going on. I know the Northwest has been particularly prevalent in the news. I had a question, it's for everyone, but just for Laura particularly now, kind of how do you keep spirits high through this kind of prolonged period of separation, and kind of socialising is a big part of working in a company, isn't it? Kind of how have you been of keeping things fresh and keeping people upbeat, when all we've been doing is Zoom calls and Zoom quizzes? Everyone was probably sick of those, were they, by April, May time? But kind of what have you been, I know you mentioned a few things on the panel, but I was wondering how that kind of develops as things go on.
Yeah, I think, because we do have a very strong community, we have a very comprehensive plan to support our colleagues to come back into the office if they choose to. We found I think it's about 60-75% of our people have utilised our office spaces over the past few weeks, which is excellent. And we've noticed a massive difference in the well-being of those individuals who have been able to see their colleagues again, their friends again. We can do face-to-face meetings in a sensible and safe manner. And I think just having the office environment has really helped our colleagues. I think that's been really important and helped develop that sense of community. But again, I think it just refers back to both points that Danielle and Rachel have said about, supporting each other through this, and, it is an unprecedented situation, and just being very open with each other about how we're feeling so we can address those issues. The Northwest is particularly prevalent at the moment. We do have quite a lot of local lockdowns and an increase in cases. So we are keeping mindful of that, but we're making sure that we provide the right support and tools for our people where appropriate. But what we're noticing is that I think there's in the majority, a lot of our people want to return back to an office environment. And I think as much as the Zoom calls and the quizzes help, we have pivoted very well to that. And there will be an option for that in the future. Nothing beats face-to-face interaction. And that personal approach, and just being able to see someone, even though you're at a 2-meter distance, just being able to see someone in the office has just been really, really important for our people, I think. And we have had feedback that it's helped them massively with their mental health.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And Danielle, in terms of, I know that at the start when operations were paused and there was many kind of crew members on ships, wasn't there? There's so many, it's not just in an office somewhere, is it? There's so many staff and so many really valued members of the team in different far-flung parts of the world. Kind of what's it like keeping in contact with them? And kind of, I know I saw, they were getting cabin upgrades and stuff like that. And it seemed like a really good sense of community. Kind of how have you kind of taken that forward? Because that's a huge part of the company as well, the operations side of things.
Yeah, do you know what? I think our ships have been it's just phenomenal in terms of the activations and the support, and that's through Shoreside and Shipboard of our organisation. And there's been so many things from pushing out lots of external support and offerings, as well as we've built welfare funds for our crew and Shoreside employees. But when you go on board as well, they did loads of things of ways to interact, way to engage, way to get them on above, looking around the ship and going to other cabins and seeing it, and all those interactions really helped them with their own well-being and being with each other and coming together. And I think that was the key thing that we always were focusing on. How do we support each other? How do you make a difference to the person day to day that you're with or in contact with? And I think globally as an organisation, we've connected even more than ever. Becoming more in a virtual world has just found a way that going for our ships and for our shoreside, the interactions I'm having with some of our colleagues within Australia, within China, just across the globe is wouldn't have happened to the same degree as it did maybe a year ago. And it just comes together in that we all just want to make sure we're supporting each other and finding creative ways to help each other, and saying that you don't have to be in the same location to pick up the phone or check in or make sure you're okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Do you feel like you might have grown closer to colleagues that perhaps you might have seen once a year, maybe, or once every few years type thing? Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely that, and I can see that across our teams as well. Their relationships with people across the globe is definitely stronger, and for a company of our size, it just shows just how powerful that is.
And Rachel, that's good, isn't it? Because that imbues, more togetherness and throughout a company, doesn't it? And do you think that obviously, of course, the effects financial and business wise on the industry have been horrific, and obviously with mental health now, it's still such a prevalent problem. Do you think there are kind of some positives? We were speaking earlier about kind of taking the small wins when you can. Do you think there are kind of some positives with the whole work-life balance, with the way that we connect now and the way that we won't, necessarily go to meet in person, drive 3 hours for a meeting? We'll get them on Zoom. Do you think that people will be able to find some sort of solace in the new way of working?
I do, yes. And I think you raise a really good point, Tom, because look, let's strip away COVID for just one moment. I think we've got to remind ourselves that before this pandemic, there were some serious problems with mental health. The whole, if you look at pictures of now of people ramming themselves onto tube trains, the crush and the stress of the commute in the morning, the kind of worry that people dropping their kids off at nursery, that they might be 5 minutes late for work. Oh my God, what has that? Or, they've got to get out of this meeting because they're going to go and pick a child up from the school gate. There was a lot that was wrong in many ways with the way that we were working, with perhaps the lack of flexible working. I mean, and obviously mums coming back from work are able to ask for flexible work, but it's not just a mum's thing. This is about everybody's health and well-being. So I actually think there are things that are good that have come out of this. We all know that we can work flexibly. Yeah, I mean, the office is still going to be important. I think we'll probably move to a sort of more hybrid model, but the idea of everybody sort of having to be there at 9 o'clock and having to be there until whatever. I mean, why? There are certain things that I think that we will need to retain and must retain. And I would absolutely love to think that businesses and organizations can approach this with much more flexibility, that it becomes much more sort of universally accepted that people can work compressed hours, staggered starts, all of these things. So let's try and think of the good stuff that will come out of it as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And then just to kind of come back to you quickly, Rachel, I wanted to ask everyone what their advice would be, to help businesses big and small kind of going forward on mental health. What would your kind of short, sharp advice be? I think we've got about a minute or two left. What would you kind of say?
Oh, listen, educate yourself about it. If you, try and understand what people are going through. Be kind. You never know what is going on in the background. Mental health is invisible. And that is one of the major challenges. A lot of people remain silent about it. So I would just say, educate yourself about it, understand what it feels like. What does it feel like? Ask somebody, what does it feel like to have anxiety? Let me put myself in your shoes so I can understand how you need to be managed, and really just ask yourself as a boss, if that you're in that position, what can I do to help you? So stay aware. If that.
Brilliant. And Laura, we've seen already that home working is going to grow more and more as people find new roles and they move from companies. Perhaps they unfortunately have had to leave their new role. Is that the case? What kind of advice would you give to someone whose mental health might be at risk if they work from home, or it's a new avenue for them, I suppose?
Yeah, I think it's just, leveraging the community around them, networking, making friends, as Rachel said, it's here to stay in some sort of hybrid function, if not full time for some businesses. So I make sure, we have a saying, I'm okay and you're okay. So effectively they need to be able to, understand their trigger points, and having a structure is really important as well.
Oh, brilliant. And Danielle, in sort of 20 or 30 seconds or so, what would be your sort of key takeaways in terms of mental health for the future?
Yeah, I would just say, and it goes back to kind of Rachel and Laura in terms of education and then building awareness. We went through a journey of what we would call like kind of breaking barriers, and it's changing the conversation. So it's okay to talk about mental health, and it's okay to share your stories, and finding ways for people to share their stories. So I would say that it's just educating, definitely, and I would say find ways in your organisation for people to start the conversation, because that is something, doesn't cost anything but can make a huge difference.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Sadly, that's all we've got time for, but obviously travel is such a tight-knit community. It can be hard to talk about stuff like this sometimes. I think we've had a really candid and really honest session here today and seminar, so thank you. Please stay in touch with TTG, tell us how we can support you, and how we can support your business through this difficult time. But thanks again for everyone who's joined us today. Continue to stay safe, and we really do appreciate you watching. So thanks very much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.